This is the Citi'uation Room on City TV, and we are gauging very closely the campaign trail as we look at the leading political parties. Key dates in our minds: 13th May, NDC goes to polls, NPP, anything from August to November to February. So, Mario Sanda, those are the key differences. NDC, there's 1 day for everybody. NPP is staggered. NDC race, our analysis shows that Mahama is likely to win. NPP,
that's where that's where the issues would become a bit more scattered, and you have to do a lot of analysis. Because, Bernard, even though we've had a vice president a number of times run for a flag bearership of their party, this one is different. And so that makes it a bit more of a complex discussion. And again, the party says it wants to break the 8. Who is it going to use to break the 8? They have, I think officially we have like 9 or 10 people who are running for this position.
Yes.
Let's quickly glance through who are the people for the NPP.
All right, very enough. So, Omar Sanda, yes, so you are right. Of course, the vice president has not come out to officially declare, but 3 weeks ago, he made a post on Facebook, and he says it is possible. And in our era, the number of people who retweeted it tells you that it was a coded message.
And the party member who did artworks and were sharing it is
so possible. We know that he's interested, and for many people, he is the presumptive front runner. We will come and discuss it later. So this is Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, and I'm sure we'll come back to the issue of how different he is from Aliu.
Yeah. So his campaigners say BMW, Bawumia must win. That's what. You remember during Mills' time, there was game, get Atta Mills elected. Okay. Then there was Fonka, Friends of Nana Kononado. So his people are BMW. Bawumia must win.
Bawumia must win. Amazing. And now then the Alan Kyerematen, who ran against Akufo-Addo thrice and votes whittled down from 33% to 19% to less than 5%. He's seen by supporters as the person whose time it is, because they are using the same equation that Eduwahin came, Kufuor came. Kufuor came, Akufo-Addo came. Akufo-Addo came, Alan must come. And in all these cases, the person who was second to the first took over. So in that sequence, it's Alan's turn, right? So this is what Alan supporters are saying. And in fact, on the N1, I saw a billboard today, which was a new billboard. The original billboard was Alan Cash for president, jobs for the people, cash for the people. This week is a different billboard with this photo, and now he's saying, time as so. It drew so. Right? So that's the narrative, right?
It is his time.
Yes. And so the message for Alan's people is that he's basically bid his time. He lost to Akufo-Addo. He helped him. He became trade minister. He's cooperated. Now it's his turn. If there's a fair fight, he will win. That's what they are saying. All right. So then, if you were talking to me a year ago, he wouldn't have even been on the picture.
In fact, before you even bring Kennedy Agyapong, I just remember something. Alan Cash.
All right. So let me go back there.
Yeah, I think Alan Cash was perhaps, or he ran the most popular campaign in 2007. Yes. The songs he had.
Yes.
But the NPP decided that no, despite everything, we're going to give it to Nana Kononado. Alan Cash was popular everywhere in the market. His name was Alan Cash.
So at the time, the presumption was that he was President Kufuor's preferred candidate.
And the
he was
party
a trade
didn't
minister.
like that.
But there was a vice president whose people also thought he ought to succeed the president. But then there was also the Akufo-Addo people who said he lost to Kufuor in 98.
So it is his time.
And became foreign minister and later on attorney general and helped Kufuor to govern. And in terms of experience, Akufo-Addo and Kufuor, you can say, are at par. So Akufo-Addo bid his time and came in 2007. And in fact, an inside there, after the first round, Akufo-Addo got 47%, Alan had 33%. It was very clear that most of the others were going to support Akufo-Addo. Because there was this feeling that Alan Kyerematen was unfairly favored by the castle, as they called it. Okay. So they are making the same argument. That
it was Akufo-Addo's time, it is now Alan's time.
So we have cooperated, so please, it's our time.
Even though I hear other critics of his campaign say he contested Nana-Addo anyway. If he had waited, then you could say it is his time. But again, that's what critics are saying. Let's move on to the next person.
This gentleman is interesting because a year ago, we didn't even know he was interested in the race. I don't know whether it was somebody provoked him in an interview or whatever, but he basically says that. In fact, today in the news, there are two stories. He says, people say I can't be president because I don't speak big English. He is seen as the outsider, populist message. He's a man of wealth as well.
The Donald Trump.
He uses media very effectively. The polls is showing that he is doing very, very well. He has now 20% in the poll, right? Of course, again, this is for general electorate, not necessarily delegates. But his trajectory has been phenomenal from last year till now.
For a stranger.
So they call him. Now, some people say he's trying to get enough votes to bargain. And if we see the message, I've seen some of his campaigns. He's a very effective communicator. He's very media savvy. And he has money, right? So,
and he appears as if he's a maverick, which is
yes,
again
so
something
and it's very interesting. You never hear him in parliament, except when media interviews him or when he's chairing committee. So you don't see him arguing on the floor. But he's very influential in parliament as well. So that's Kennedy Agyapong.
Okay.
So you can say these are the three front runners. I'm sure the others.
Oh, you have decided. You have decided for you, these are the three.
Based on my interactions with people on the ground, these are the three. But I've interviewed some of these people who are saying to me that, Bernard, you are mistaken. And I'm happy to be corrected.
Okay.
So former energy minister, New York banker, fell out with the Akufo-Addo team when he was replaced by Peter Amewu. Some say over the PDS deal, likes wearing a bow tie, very eloquent guy from Odumase Krobo. We wait to see what he will do in the polls. He's not doing that well in the polls we've seen. Again, this gentleman is also a bit like Spiel. Very highly regarded in the early Kufuor years. One of the offensive brains, considered for finance before he went to trade.
He did
NEPAD for some reason. We don't hear much about him.
I call him the Edward Mahama of our flag bearer contest. He's always been in the race.
This guy is interesting because I've interviewed him, and he's again, I said something about the Ashanti point when it came to the NDC, where Dufour and Kojo Bonsu. So you see a lot of Ashantis in the race. Let's just go back here, right? So the issue with MPP is, apart from this man, this gentleman, he's Ashanti Fante. His dad is Ashanti, his mother is Fante. But Alan Kyerematen is considered an Ashanti, right? His father was former KCC, very highly respected friend of Kufuor. He ran the Kumasi Cultural Center. So you can say he's an Ashanti elite. Okay. And Kennedy lived in Kumasi. In fact, in an interview he did, he showed his house that he was born in Bantama. He identifies with the poverty that started. So even though he's from Asin, and again, Asin itself has close ties with Ashanti. Asin is the borderline between Fante and Asante. So even though he is central, and it's very interesting, in his message, he plays the Fante also very well. So I hear him in the central region talking about why should people say that Bawumia, the Northerners, deserve a chance? Because the Fantes have always helped the NPP. They've never had an NPP candidate. So he pushes his central region side. But when he's in Kumasi and you listen to him, he's true blue Kumasi. He talked about where he was born, the house he lived in. In fact, there was an interview he was coming to do. He showed the very old house and some charcoal cellar and things. We're so excited that somebody from here can become this. So he can say Kwesi Ashanti, all right? And Boakye Ejaku as well. Again, Odumase Krobo, in terms of his where he's born and where he lives. But his father is an Ashanti, all right?
But even Krobos also have a history with the NPP, if you look at the... Yeah.
So I'm just trying to point out to you that there's a lot... Now, the reason I bring this Ashanti point is, this guy, former MP for Ofinso, Ashanti guy. Now, when I interviewed the Greek minister, we spent a bit of time talking about his father, Bafo Seakutu, and he says, look, my father is really one of the people whose work led to MPP's strength. National Liberation Movement, okay? They were the Matimi people initially, fought for cocoa. If I was the linguist of the Ashanti Kingdom, a cocoa farmer. His son, Minister for Agric, one of Akufo-Addo's closest confidants, now resigned to contest. And in the conversation, he says, look, I was asking about the influence of Menchia, and he says, I'm from Menchia. His brother is in Menchia. So he's touting his Menchia roots. Because
so his closeness to Ashanti.
Yes, and so if the famous Akoto lectures that the lawyers celebrate, is his father who sort of moved.
The linguist who is being talked about.
So he is an interesting one. For what it's worth, he started campaigning much earlier, but he's sort of, he feels that he has a chance. This is the
former
yes.
railway
He's non-Ashanti former. Again, I can say his stock seems to have fallen a bit. When he was appointed Deputy Attorney General under Kufuor, he was one of the most fascinating people to talk to. Very respected lawyer, rose to become Deputy Speaker. I mean, if you listen to Jogate, and in fact, he and his wife, very respected. For some reason, I don't know whether it is alleged Kufuor affiliation, but for some reason, he's not had a smooth ride in the NPP. And the fact that he was railway minister, all right? I mean, if you look at Jogate, former speaker, for his stature, you are looking at a higher position, right? Foreign minister or something. So I think that's part of his problem. And
even in the second term, he was dropped completely from the government. So things didn't look that.
And in
good.
fact, even in his election against the NDC doctor,
yes,
he even had a harder time.
Yes, he did.
And don't forget, Sekondi Takoradi is a strong MPP place. So MPP is not just Ashanti and Central.
Yeah.
Sekondi Takoradi is one of the strong. So he's an elite MPP person, but for some reason, he's not getting that visibility. You've interviewed him more often. I don't know what...
I have. I mean, so he believes again that the MPP, even though we say UP Dankwa tradition, and we mentioned Dombo, he believes that the Fante have played so much a role in the formation of the NPP. I mean, take it way back.
Background.
Yes. So all these people believe that it is their time. The Fantes now have to have a stake in the NPP. If they say a party, and I'm referring to the Ashanti people saying we are collecting a party, then the Fantes have a better claim to the collection of the party because they have been involved in the...
But when you interview him, how confident is he? Because I notice he talks to you quite often. Is he confident that he's making any inroads?
He is very confident, and you see, even when he was dropped from the government, he decided that he's going to damn all the consequences and he's going to go the full haul. He's busy in Parliament doing the work for the party that is expected of him. He doesn't look bitter. I mean, someone would say, oh, because he's been dropped, he should get angry and just forget. But whenever they need any crucial votes, he's there to...
And he's also quite influential. So a lot of times when there are issues in Parliament, you see that
he's a legal guy.
Yes,
I mean, if he's a former Attorney General, how many former Attorney Generals do we have in Parliament? His counterpart may be, I'm not even sure that would be a fair comparison because he rose to be Deputy Speaker. Yes. So Ayine may not even be a fair comparison. Ayine was Deputy AG. He was AG.
So so is he campaigning?
He is campaigning. He's busy on the grounds. He's always sharing on social media the work he's doing, which places he has gone to. And interestingly, when the president was giving the state awards, he was one of the
other thing you say is that...
Because he helped out with the EAT-LOS case.
Yeah.
And that's very crucial.
And Jogate's work in Ghana politics and MPP cannot be forgotten. So even if he doesn't do well, he will still be important for the MPP for as long as the party is, as long as he's alive, because of the work he's done.
I see him like Papa Osuan Kuma. That's the kind of person I see in him. But let's go to the next.
So there is he's the non-Ashanti in the thing I was trying to. This guy is also interesting. Again, I've had interviews with him.
Yeah, recently.
An engineer. If you ask me personally, in terms of eloquence and in terms of clarity of thoughts, he's very high up there. Because he understands what he wants to do. I think it's because he's an engineer with a media training. He's very articulate and very concise. So when you talk to Agyapong for 10 minutes, you know what he's trying to say. And it's very clear what he wants to solve. The problem, though, is in Ghana, it's like, what has he done? It's like he was Kufuor's spokesperson. People think that, what does that mean? But I remember doing a program with engineers who said we need more engineers in politics. So I think his route could be professional bodies, right? Where you have people who are saying, look, we've tried all these lawyers and all these economists, they are not helping us. Let's bring in a doer. We don't know if he has that much time and resources. But if you ask me in terms of a quality person, this guy is a quality person.
He's strong. Okay, let's look at it.
And of course, his problems as General Secretary didn't help him.
I think because they got him back on the campaign in 2020, it appears that has been forgotten. But
but he always leads with that in the interviews. Yeah. And of course, Adanimo, former MP, always there or thereabouts, never really gets there.
But Adanimo did well when they had that electoral college of 2010.
Yes.
He managed to be part of the top 5.
Yeah.
So it means that he's not someone we should be playing with, but except that 2014 that was, not 2010, 2014. So, but then he kept running. He was here on face-to-face recently, and he said he still has power and energy.
As things stand, based on the polls we've seen, again, this is polls of 80 constituencies, over almost 5,000 respondents. For people who say they vote for NPP, this is all voters. This is including NDC supporters, floating voters, and then NPP supporters. Alan Kyerematen, this poll was taken 13th April, all right? Alan is in the lead as a general view for those who, all the voters who were polled. Kennedy, again, January is the blue, April is the red. So look at how Kennedy has risen from 4 to 23. And then there's a whole someone else, a lot of indecision here because people have not declared. So this is a very early dipstick, all right? But what you should look out for is this one. When you come to, when you come to only MPP voters, I don't know if I have this, If you came to only MPP voters, that was going to be different because that one, Bawumia then goes a bit higher and Alan comes down. So I was going to say that it's very similar to the Mahama thing in a way that...
So internally...
Somehow, when you talk to people who are in the MPP, so I'll say Alan is very popular in the country. But I think Bawumia is more popular in the MPP.
Does that surprise you? Bawumia burst on the scene. He was brought in 2007, 2008. We remember all the fight about now freeing him. Who is he? Why is Nanado bringing this guy? When we had other people being mentioned at the time, Halima Mahama and the rest.
Yeah.
So they lost the 2008 election.
Yeah.
But 2012, he became the star boy of the NPP. And 2016, he and his spouse, it's almost like they were the ones running the campaign. Yeah. So internally, NPP would think the same way that NDC people are thinking for John Mahama. This is a guy who has been fighting for us, and so he's the one who is supposed to go. But of course, Alan has a history and has been there before, so people would look at Alan and then they will start asking the question, should we go for the guy who has always been in the shadows, or should we go for this new guy who has just come, the whiskey?
I think that the difference between Bawumia and other vice presidents has been that in the 2016 election, he was almost the arrowhead of the campaign when it came to the economy, because there was a major economic crisis, emblematic or sort of epitomized by the energy crisis. So Bawumia was popular, and his rhetoric on the economy propelled the MPP with the middle classes, all right? So, and then he's also been a fairly popular vice president until recently with all the problems the MPP is facing. So he is not necessarily Aliu, where at the time, this was the first time MPP had come to power, and Aliu's gifts were not really highlighted in the Kufuor era. But Bawumia, being an economist, is an advantage, and being an arrowhead of a campaign is an advantage. So I feel like the MPP leaders, they are in a challenge because they feel if they don't, and this is the view that if Bawumia does not become the candidate, it could send a different signal to voters from the north, which we can discuss later. So for now, these are the front runners, but things can change.
There's something that we have to look at. If we think, based on the analysis, Bawumia is going to lead the NPP, and we also think, based on the analysis, Mahama is going to lead the NDC. How is a Mahama and Bawumia contest going to look like nationally? I
think you're picking before time. I think, look, Sanda, I need to be very clear, because there's August. Let's see how the 5 goes. Let's see the percentages. Then before November, before we even start thinking about what I am clear with, NDC has 3 weeks to go. Bahama is going to win. But for MPP, I think we should wait.
It's too early, yes,
I think we should wait.
Call it.
We should wait till around August.